Okay, I am recording this on the 6th of August, which means that we don't have much information about the league. But I've been toying around with this idea for a while when I found an item last league. Except last league there was no reason to build this. There are a surprising number of fractured decay items entering the economy. And nobody's using them because this thing cost me 35 chaos. Making this item, right, if it wasn't found like a fractured decay on the ground, would cost you a fortune because you have to use the essence, which is not a naturally occurring essence, so you have to use corrupting essences or buy a large amount of these essences, I think it's delirium, that inflict decay, and then you have to figure out how to get it fractured, which is, last I checked, well beyond my budget range. So this type of item, I assume there's something in the essence mechanics on the Atlas that allow it to occur, or it's a combination of essence mechanics combined with ArchNem mods, and that makes it occur. But these things are entering the economy. Now, getting it on the minion wand is the grail in a way. And the reason for that is that implicit, the 30% increased damage, is huge. But nonetheless, these things are entering the economy, and if you want to get it on a dagger, it gets really cheap real fast. Or like just a wand, not a minion wand. Again, really cheap, pretty fast. And this is effectively just a fractured mod and an essence applied to it, and this would give a 111% increased damage, and then have a 700 decay on all your hits. Which is important because we don't have to sacrifice a link. Now, if you're going to use decay support in a link and you have a level 21 decay, it's a pretty good link. It's a 30% more multiplier or 35% more multiplier roughly in that area, which is these days a good support. But if you are using your skills in a way that you are not using them in a link, well, this is effectively worth, well, more than a link in my mind. So how would you use a skill not on a link? We have my favorite item, the Triumvirate Authority, Unset Ring. Turn off the title. Drops from Atziri or Uber Atziri, getting the perfect set of rolls. Very expensive, very difficult. If you just care about one roll, and we only care about 100%, 150% more damage right now, then it's dirt cheap. It's like a chaos or two. If you want 2 mods, a little bit more. 2 chaos, 3. If you want something that is all the perfect rolls, you can probably get it for 5 chaos. Unless people realize it and actually put it up for Divine. But usually I buy like 4 or 5 of these things every league. And they're cheap. And they're fun. What we can do is use that item we just saw, which applies Decay for 700 points on with a skill running in Triumvirate Authority, which will be Val Arc. And we'll go through a lot of the details as to why we would want to do that. And we want this 150% more damage because this 150% more damage will affect the decay. Scaling decay is hard. 150% more damage. That is equivalent to 3 good supports at 35% more damage without any downsides and no mana cost multiplier. I mean, it's Val. There's no mana cost. Is awesome. Also +2 levels for Val Arc means that getting to level 21 is really easy, which gives us the extra chain. The reason we want to do Val Arc is because Val Arc has this line. 15% more damage for each remaining chain. This will scale Decay. Right? It doesn't say more lightning damage, more spell damage, more hit damage, more any... There's no qualifier on this. This is one of the ways you can scale Decay. This will allow you to apply Decay to screens full of enemies. Now Val Arc does have duration. Whoop, don't want to go there. And it does have a soul gain prevention. But they figured out that reducing the duration on Val Arc and reducing the soul gain prevention that way meant that people could just cast Val Arc slow enough and have a soul gain prevention low enough that you could just keep casting Val Arc. We can't really drop the soul gain prevention much, 2 seconds. But because now a very large component of the damage of our Val Arc comes from Decay, right? And let's just take a look at this. Val Arc does 900 to 1500 damage. Well, we're probably going to have a level 22 of these guys. Level 22 Val Arc, 1100 to 1800 damage. Decay, after a second, will do 700 damage. After 2 seconds, half the damage of the cast came from Decay. After 3 seconds, it's you know, by the time you hit like 5 or 6 seconds, almost all the damage is coming from Decay. So Decay does a substantial amount of damage, and also it backloads the damage. Backloading the damage allows us to bypass soul gain prevention. Because if we don't kill a lot of stuff right up front, but we kill stuff over, let's say, the next 4 seconds, well, half of the things we kill over the next 4 seconds, especially the stuff that's after 2 seconds, well, only the stuff after 2 seconds, will bypass soul gain prevention. It's actually better because I'm pretty sure soul gain prevention starts as soon as you start casting, and as long as you don't cast very fast, and this thing has a relatively long casting time, you know, you only have to cover a smaller amount. Val Arc is also cool because it has 100% increased effective lightning ailments. Works with Decay. Because shock increases damage taken. Doesn't say hits, I'm very certain. 100% increased duration of lightning ailments. Matters because we actually do care what happens after 3 or 4 seconds, or well, up to 4 seconds. And 100% chance to shock enemies. Well, that means that we don't have to invest anything in shock. It does have a 100% increased effect already built in. So as long as we can do a little bit more damage with the Val Arc to help it up a bit, or ignore resistances, which is one of the things you can get on the Triumphant Authority, we can get pretty decent shocks combined with a pretty decent more multiplier on Val Arc and have a very nice clear setup and relive the glory days of 3.13. In 3.14 they decided that no longer the buff duration doesn't apply to soul gain prevention. Yeah. Sad. I miss those days. Anyway, we're going to go back there now. Hopefully. Now there's actually something interesting. Because this setup worked before. But there's another way to apply Decay that is very good, which is Stormburst. And in 3.13 or 12 or whenever this stuff used to work, you wouldn't want to combine it with Stormburst. And the reason you didn't want to combine it with Stormburst is that Stormburst wants increased duration and Val Arc wanted reduced duration. But now Val Arc doesn't care because soul gain prevention doesn't change. So increased duration is fine. It doesn't break Val Arc. Stormburst has been around for a long time, I believe. Yeah, it's been around for a long time. It's just awful. But with Val Arc, it's a pretty good deal. So the reason it is good is that it has this ability: exploding orbs deal 75% of skill damage for each 0.4 seconds remaining in the duration. And duration starts out as 1.2 seconds. So what does that mean? Well, if we have a duration of, let's say, 4 seconds, or like 3 seconds, let's make 3 seconds, it's more reasonable. And it explodes. There's 3 seconds left on the duration. We divide this by the 0.4, which gives us 7.5. I'm pretty sure this will turn into 7 the way that computers like to do math. So that means we do 7 times 75% of the skills damage. Okay, 7 times 0.75. That is 5.25, which means a 425% more multiplier. Which is fine, because the damage on this skill is not high. 6 to 8 at a low level, 168 to 252 at the higher level, with the damage effectiveness of 35%. It's really bad. But Decay doesn't care. It doesn't care about the effectiveness of added damage. It doesn't care that this number is low. Right? If you have a Decay, the mod version, and you use a level 1 Stormburst, it will do a very large amount of damage. At a higher level Stormburst, it will do a massive amount of damage. Well, actually, it will do the same amount of damage, really, because this part doesn't scale at all. It doesn't do anything for duration. It increases the radius. So we can use a Stormburst. We can vary the level, which means we can vary the mana cost. This is going to matter. And we can use that to channel our Stormburst and make it so that the channel ends, due to lack of mana, after one cast. Right, so we want to have a very low amount of mana available for us to cast with. The reason we want to do that is because we want to explode orbs. We don't really care about having the orbs bounce around. That's not where we're getting our damage from. We want to explode the orbs with the maximum amount of duration left. Right, so ideally we want to orb explode, orb explode, orb explode, orb explode. Right? And the way that we can trigger that, making it a single cast instead of channeled, is by making sure that we just run out of mana. So yeah, couldn't do this before, right? Because that increased duration really didn't work well with the Vile Arc setup. Now it does work together. So we could have one setup with Stormburst and Decay, and then one setup with Vile Arc in a Triumphant Authority and Decay, and then the only thing we have to solve is our increased damage and our chaos damage over time multiplier. Let's talk about increased chaos damage, or increased damage flat. Increased damage flat is just hard to get. It's probably about as hard to get as increased chaos damage. Increased chaos damage isn't really a mod that shows up in a lot of places. This is Scourge, Red Implicit, Weapon Tree stuff. That's it. I'm just searching through the mods of chaos damage. And increased chaos damage, I believe you can craft it, but uncrafted can show up on hunter belts, and it can roll up to 25%. Can be higher, but that's too expensive for my taste. So increased chaos damage is super difficult to get by. Increased damage is easier to get than increased chaos damage, funny enough. Chaos damage over time multiplier. You can have it just chaos damage over time multiplier. Gloves and amulets for Elder and Hunter, I believe. On the weapon itself, I think it's a suffix. And the suffix for one-handed can go up to 28%. So, oh no, 33%, my bad. So you can get a higher chaos damage over time multiplier as a suffix on a weapon than you can get chaos damage increased at all. On amulet or gloves, you can get up to 15%, 15% more versus 25% increased. Again, it's very difficult to scale chaos to increase chaos damage, which is why it's very tempting to build your tree in a way that you are gonna go to spiritual aid. Let me see if this shows better in game. Ooh, might. Where are you? There you are. Spiritual aid. Actually, I think that's slightly bigger. Increase and reductions to minion damage also affect you. This is huge. The reason this is huge is because it allows you to take increases to minion damage and make it generic damage, which allows you to scale Decay. And Decay doesn't like to scale. Kind of hard to get to there if you already set up your mind to play Pathfinder. I'm going to play Pathfinder. Part of the reason I'm playing Pathfinder is Nature's Reprisal. 25% chance to inflict Withered for 2 seconds on hit. That's kind of nice. Also Skills Decay. 50% increased effect of Withered. So pretty good. So this has some synergy. And then the question is what else we're going to do. I don't know. I am not a huge fan of Master Surgeon because I like to automate my flasks. I think Master Alchemist is awful. I think Master Distiller is not great. So yeah, we'll see if any of these things change. But this is the part of the tree I know. Increased duration is over near Scion. There's 2 small wheels. They give you 45% increased duration. So it's down in this corner with exceptional performance. And then you have potency of will over here. If we have to travel over here anyway, we're about halfway to spiritual aid. So sure, we can do that pathing. This is just a character I'm logged in with. It has its own abomination tree. So let's take a quick look at what that would look like in POB. First of all, POB does not support what we're doing. Right? Decay is a wonky skill. POB doesn't support wonky stuff just because you think it's a good idea. POB is volunteers and they are not aiming for feature completeness, which they shouldn't. So what we're going to do is we're going to play Pathfinder because that's all I know. And then we are going to take Supreme Ego because we need to get our mana reservation high. We'll be using Malevolence, I believe, and Discipline. Get some defenses in there as well. This will get us a reservation over 100%. Because we are up here anyway, we can pick up Sovereignty and tweak the mana around on this wheel relatively easily. We can pick up Duration over here on Enduring Bond, which gives us increased skill effect duration. And minions deal 30% increased damage if you've used a minion skill recently. So this is 20% increased skill effect duration, which is really good. 25 is as good as it gets. Combined with 30% increased damage, given that we'll be probably using a minion skill on occasion. And then we have 12% damage nodes of 12% increased. Minions deal 12% increased damage. 12% damage nodes for chaos are really hard to find on the trees, so this is pretty sweet nodes. And increased minion duration as well. So we get 44% increased minion duration. So we'll probably do something with a minion in this league. We're going to pick up Potency of Will. We also pick up Ash, Frost, and Storm because I want to be Reflect immune for elemental damage. The Pantheon provides the other 40%. I hope. We'll see what the patch notes say. Part of the reason why it's important is that if you are getting your initial souls using Stormburst, Stormburst does piddly damage. you might not notice that there is a reflect on the map. Vile Arc will let you know if reflect is on the map and you're not immune. You'll just you just fall over dead. I've done it before, it's unpleasant. Other notable things. Oh yes. We really would like to have Trick Shot. 30% increased chaining range, chaining distance 15%. 45% increased chaining range just makes Vile Arc even more ludicrous than it already is. So definitely want to pick this up in the long run. Anything else worth noting? I mean, right now we're all speculating on the league mechanic. My speculation is it's gonna be really slow. Like really slow. Because if they have a mechanic that's kind of MOBA-like, and their idea is that there's a respawn dynamic in there where you have to get to somebody's totem before they respawn, that's not exciting if you can zoom. So what's probably going to happen is the respawns are either going to be really fast or possibly instantaneous. But the fighting itself should take a decent chunk of time. Like, you shouldn't be able to kill the enemy team in seconds. Like, it should be like 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds to get through a wave, and then you go to the next wave because they're respawning and you're pushing the line, and that's kind of the dynamic you would be going for, which really doesn't fit well to people's expectation of POE. So I'm planning to lean into that. Right? I'm playing a skill that I use, and then for the next 8 seconds I'm twiddling my thumbs, right? So for the next 8 seconds, I could apply withered debuffs. Cool. Well, if we have a bunch of increased skill effect duration and I'm using something like Blade Vortex, then the withered debuffs will hit 15 stacks. Fine, done. I probably still can press 4 more different buttons before I have to apply my withered stack of my decay again. So I'm planning to actively support my team and play with my team and apply things like blind and other wonky abilities and just see what works. We don't know what works. And there's lots of opportunities for weird interactions that could make huge effects. By the way, you can use Bone Shadow as well. It also has this more multiplier. I have no idea how you're gonna make it work. It's not my problem. But there is like siphoning. Does siphoning trap do anything for teammates? Only applies to enemies. You could use siphoning trap and regenerate yourself some mana, but you probably can use Holy Flame Totem. I believe this gives Consecrated Ground, so you can use Consecrated Ground as one of the effects that you apply, and you can toss this out and then it just sits there for a while and heals your team. Right, last 8 seconds, it's about the cadence we want to play at anyway. We'll probably be relatively stationary in these fights. So throwing a Holy Flame Totem behind my front line to give them some additional regeneration could be a really good deal. There's Shock, there is Chill, there are lots of other ways to try and increase the effectiveness of your team and decrease the output of damage from the opposing team. And I'm probably going to have a lot of fun with the new sports and looking around for other random junk. If I were to guess, you can link to these guys because they really like the idea of linking to people. And that might be reasonable with this build. I'm actually going to buy some link wheels. I'm honest to God contemplating it. But you know, we don't know if auras affect them. We don't know if they are friendly or party members or what the classifications are. We have no idea how it's going to interact with multiplayer, which I don't know if they've tackled that ball of yarn. We have not great clarity on the number of enemies. I think it's 5 a team. That's what I gathered from the pictures, but there's a lot of questions about the league mechanic. And I think that if the league mechanic is super slow and your best bet of getting deep is to actually support your team, having something like a decay setup that does most of my damage, like the damage DPS is going to be lower than other setups or other skills. Like, this is not meta for a reason, but it gives me a lot of time to do stuff. Even if I'm kiting enemies around, right? That drops their DPS to 0, while hopefully my team is still hitting them. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm actually kind of looking forward to the league. I'm looking forward to mucking around with these skills, seeing how it works, and with a little bit of luck, relive the glory days of using Val Arc to pretty much kill everything on the map all the time. That's my master plan. Because Val Arc is so satisfying. Yeah. I miss those days. I mean, I understand why they took it out. But, you know, if they decide that something is too powerful and they have to remove it, probably have a good reason. And then as the players, we just look at the gigantic toolbox until we find a way to recreate the experience that they took away. That's my goal.